There are over 70 Pokemon available to play inside of Pokemon Unite, yet over the last 800 days, there has only been a single little guy that waddled onto that support roster. I do want to ask the question, how do we change that? There are over 1,000 Pokemon inside the franchise, and honestly countless to choose from. Some argue that a lot, or at least most Pokemon are designed to be more offensive, which is why there are so many all-rounders and attackers. However, when you look at VGC, there are so many Pokemon that get used in a supportive type role. I think these Pokemon could absolutely translate into Unite, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. In this video, I will be taking a look at Pokemon that not only would be a fun addition to the Unite roster, but something that I personally love, and I think that it can really shock the competition. I'm talking about one and only the Steel Electric type Magnezone. Before we get started, hello everybody, I am SteelAgentKyle, and I am a Pokemon Unite commentator. You may have seen me casting the official Pokemon Unite Championship Series tournaments this year, as well as some other grassroots competition. Anyway, let's go ahead and charge back into the video. So let's talk about Magnezone, the Magnet Area Pokemon. I'll start off by saying I think there are several ways to implement Magnezone into the game. I think most likely if we do see Magnezone get added into Unite, it'll likely get added as an attacker, but with how large the attacker role is and how many Pokemon are in that, as well as how few Pokemon are in that supportive class, I really want to focus on ways that allow for creative designs for these supporter Pokemon. Magnezone is the perfect Pokemon to join as a supporter because of all the different ways it can help both you and your team disrupt the opponents. I see Magnezone playing a similar role to something like an Eldegoss, which is something that hangs out in that back line, provides damage from afar, but also is able to help keep enemies away from your teammates with its passive along with other abilities. I have Magnezone designed as a special attack-based Pokemon as well as a ranged attack-based Pokemon. Magnezone is a stage 2 Pokemon, meaning that the base Pokemon, Magnemite, evolves twice to become fully evolved. Magnemite will likely evolve at level 4 into Magneton, and then at level 7 into Magnezone. This is likely the course of action for this Pokemon evolution line, but I can also see it evolving into Magnezone at level 6, similar to something like a Serena or a Delphox, which would likely also push people to maybe wearing XP share as well. Magnezone, I think, is going to thrive in supporting the team through hindrances and buffs, but it will likely struggle with mobility and scoring, which I'd say is a good thing for any supportive Pokemon. You don't want these things to be too incredibly broken. It will also likely have some decent offensive capabilities along with endurance. I think this is probably going to be the course of action because in the mainline games, it does thrive with its special attack and defenses, which I think this will translate into Unite. Typically, the developers do like trying to keep true to the design of the Pokemon, albeit either in the anime or within the main VGC. Now let's talk about the passive ability along with the auto attacks. Magnezone's passive ability will likely be Magnet Pull, which is its ability in the mainline games, and how that works is it prevents opposing Pokemon from escaping. Inside Pokemon Unite, there's no real escaping. So how I see this working is I see it will be similar to perhaps Wigglytuff's Cute Charm. This will help it act as a supporter, and it'll force enemies to be a little bit more strategic when it comes to charging in on your teammates. Magnezone's auto attacks will likely be similar to something like an Eldegoss or even a Pikachu, where the boosted autos will stun or slow the enemy. I think this makes it quite a good candidate for a muscle band or some other basic attack enabled items. Now let's talk about Magnezone's abilities. So Magnezone is going to start off by learning Thunder Shock, which is a low damage ability that provides decent early game pressure and pretty good last hit ability in that early game. There are already a few Pokemon that utilize Thunder Shock within Pokemon Unite in that early game. Think Pikachu, Alolan Raichu, which technically is Pikachu at that time, along with Miraidon. At level 4, you'll have the option to upgrade Spark into one of two abilities. abilities. The first option will be Thunder Wave, a more support-style driven ability that will help your team by setting up knockouts. I currently have it designed as a sure hit ability with a decent cooldown timer, but I could also see, and I would personally like it to be more of a skill shot, which could potentially increase the duration of the stun on it if it is a skill shot. Personally, I do like it when the game rewards skillful behavior opposed to more sure hit abilities. Thunder Wave will have a short range, so it'll be good to utilize this when opponents are trying to jump into melee range. Think of this ability something similar to Mean Look on the Umbreon or Imprison on Chandelure. It will stun the opponent, leaving them unable to act, and then prevent them from utilizing their own abilities. It will not do any damage on the opponent, so it's important to really pair this with a teammate that will follow up with some massive damage. At level 10, the plus version will likely increase the duration of the effects. The other upgrade option is Flash Cannon. While it will provide some damage to the opponent, the big thing that this will do is lower the defenses or special defenses of that Pokemon temporarily. Currently, in Pokemon Unite, there aren't a great deal of Pokemon that do this, so I think it would be a cool way to design a support. At level 10, the plus version of this move will likely increase the debuff of this enemy or lower the cooldown. Ability number 2, Magnezone's second ability slot will give you Supersonic to start out. I like this ability because it's something that you often see in that mainline series game on Magnemite. It learns it pretty early on, so I think it's always good to kind of stick true to Pokemon from their lore. From there, at level 6, you'll have access to learn one of 2 abilities from upgrading Supersonic. The first being Magnetic Flux. For this one, I envision it being a buff to Magnezone along with the allied Pokemon, increasing defense and special defense, which is kind of true to form in the mainline games. I also like the idea that this could potentially help prevent hindrances on your Pokemon, maybe giving them hindrance resistance. This would also give a little bit of diversity to its support style, especially if this entire slot does not offer any damage. The plus side ability of this move will create a larger area of effect and potentially increase the buff duration. The other upgrade option from Supersonic is Electric Terrain. In the mainline games, this will prevent sleep, it increases power of electric type moves, and it gives buffs to some different Pokemon. In Unite, I think this will have mostly an increase to attack or special attack of all allies, and then even potentially slowing enemies within that electric terrain. The plus side of this move will make the area of effect a little bit wider and the cooldown a little bit lower. There are some additional things that I think could make this an even more interesting support move, and that's the synergy with other Pokemon, specifically Alolan Raichu. Alolan Raichu was recently added into Pokemon Unite, and inside the mainline games, Electric Terrain gives a speed boost to all Pokemon with the Surge Surfer ability, which, if you played Alolan Raichu recently, or since it's come out, Alolan Raichu's passive ability is Surge Surfer inside of Pokemon Unite. Personally, I think it's really fun when developers give some synergy to different Pokemon, such as the way Suicune interacts with other Ice-type Pokemon, or maybe Sweet Kiss Comfey interacts with Zeraora. The more that you do this, I think it gives additional dimensions in competitive play as well as the draft mode. I do want to give some honorable mentions. There are so many abilities in Magnezone's move pool that I could see getting added into Pokemon Unite, but the ones that I mentioned above, those are kind of what I wanted to design Magnezone as a supporter. Obviously, it likely will be an attacker, but let's talk about some of the additional abilities that we could potentially see get added to Magnezone. Tri-Attack. Currently, we do have this ability on Dodrio. How I see Magnezone implementing this is potentially doing something with the different effects of the move, so whether it's stuns, burns, or freezes, could be an additional way to have some uniqueness inside of its kit. Screech. This one, likely more of a support style ability. I think this would focus more on disrupting the enemy. Potentially, this could help your Pokemon become more evasive, similar to how the plus side of Leaf Tornado works on Eldegoss. Lock On. Personally, I don't know if we would ever see this added to Magnezone, especially if it's more of a supporter. However, if it ended up being an attacker, I could see Lock On being an ability that you use in combination with another type of damaging ability to help either increase the damage or maybe even the critical hit, or maybe even the size of the area of effect. Light Screen. This is another supportive style move that can help disrupt the enemy's movement or damage against your own team. Currently, we do have Mr. Mime along with Mew Mew that have this ability, so I could definitely see this move getting added to Magnezone, but personally, I do like the other abilities that we had added. And then lastly, on the honorable mentions, Zap Cannon. This is Magnezone's big damage ability in the mainline games, but I think we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about the Unite move, and honestly, prepare to run for shelter because its Unite move I have listed as Geomagnetic Storm Cannon. Told you we'd get to Zap Cannon. It's not obviously an official name and it's completely made up, but I think it sounds cool, and I think that's one of the most fun parts about the Pokemon Unite kits, is that the Unite moves always have a fun name, and they're usually either based on a move that is inside the move pool, or a signature move, or something even potentially completely made up. Either way, how I have this designed is, I think you can use it at level 8 or 9. A lot of the sportive class have a mixed bag of either learning their Unite moves at level 8 or level 9, so depending on how powerful this Pokemon is, you could either have it learn it at 8 or 9. How I have this designed is it'll take some uniqueness and a little bit of strategy to have it land. So it's going to set up your team for some massive follow-up damage. So it's going to charge for a second, and then it'll send out that electric blast. So it's going to stun anyone in the area of effect for a second, but also damage them. I see the damage being a bit on that lower side since it is a support Pokemon, but additionally, I would like to see this as a more engagement tool opposed to reactionary, since it does have to charge before utilizing it, which could also leave Magnezone relatively vulnerable and potentially counterable. Now let's talk about builds and macro with this Pokemon. I will preface this with saying, please wear XP share on your supporters and your tank and defender Pokemon. It is one of the best items inside of Pokemon Unite, and it's especially great on those two classes, both the defenders and supporters. With that said, I think there are a lot of ways you can build a Pokemon like this. Based on the kit, I could see a few different ways to play this one, similar to how different people play some of those more attack-based supported Pokemon. So the first one being Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf, and an XP share. Or Psy, if you are playing it as a carry, I advise against it, but you could also utilize something like a Choice Specs or a Slick Spoon. Personally, I would really recommend something like a full support build for this type of Pokemon to really enable your teammates. XP share to help bolster your team's scaling, Resonant Guard to continuously grant shields to you along with your teammates, and then the last item, I would love either something like a Cursed Incense to prevent enemy healing, or even a Buddy Barrier to give additional shields in big team moments when you need to use your Unite move. Some other items I could see being good would be the new Drive Lens, which gives additional cooldown so you can use your moves more frequently, and it stacks additional damage when you get KOs and assists, which I see this Pokemon doing really well considering you'll be able to damage them safely from afar with the boosted autos. Emblems will likely be one of 3 different sets depending on the stats of the Pokemon. A special attacker cooldown set for additional use of your abilities, a special attacker tank to give some extra HP and special attack, or if the numbers work out on attack speed similar to Eldegoss or Alolan Ninetales, I could see a red emblem page being viable to help with attack speed. Lastly, thank you for sticking around and watching my video. If you like what you saw, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to be creating many more of these videos, so tell me what Pokemon you would like to see enter the fray inside of Pokemon Unite. If you want more content, please also make sure to follow me on Twitch, where I host and commentate tournaments, have live gameplay, and along with hang out with my community. But until then, folks, we will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.